Okay, so we begin another day of all this. Do we have any questions from the stuff yesterday? Cash those out first. Ha! It's all perfectly clear.
There's too many questions.
Cool. Okay. Let's see. What do I want to go back over from yesterday, maybe briefly?
Men's room.
After you get done talking for a long period of time, I have the tendency, like I think most people do, to kind of reflect back and say, how things were packaged and presented. And, I think people did or didn't understand various things and whatnot. Everything up here you can feel free to ask us to make a copy of it for you. Oh, somebody was nice enough to bring a copy of Kathleen Milner's book. This must be this meeting. Oh, fantastic.
I just got the letter.
Thank you. Yeah. Oh, great. What'd you think of it, John?
I liked it. Okay. I especially liked the part where she said, Western saddle, where's the horse? And then in the end she puts a paragraph that says, don't write me letters about that.
This is that lady who appears on a lot of her stuff. She drew it in a little better. But, I had just actually taken out a letter to let you know where you could order this. So it's good that we have it to look through. In her letter, she says, Reiki and Other Rays of Touch Healing, which is the name of the book, Reiki and Other Rays of Touch Healing is completed. I'm being guided to self-publishing a limited edition before I give it to my literary agent. And she does have a literary agent, and the literary agent is waiting quite eagerly for it. It has a full-color cover, obviously, and is perfect bound. Perfect bound means that it's got a glued photo spiral. If you would like a copy, please send $15 for each book. The price includes postage. In the book, I tell about how I first began working with Sai Baba, where Reiki comes from, how the initiations affect the initiated, basic information that is taught in Reiki 1 and 2 classes, a wealth of healing techniques and examples. I tie in related aspects from different mystical cultures, and there is a great deal more. Also, in this letter, she talks about this tape, which we'll be hearing later, and which my guess is you'll be fairly interested in after we go through it. And here's what she has to say about that. I've had more copies of Journey to the Sacred Mountain run off. In it I call in the energies and incorporate the 4 directions, 4 elements, and Mother, Father, God into our own heart centers, which is where Sacred Mountain lies. Ancient symbology on side 2 works with universal archetypal energies found within Egyptian hieroglyphs. I've just recorded Candle Meditation, which guides the meditator into the gap between thought and breath through spiritual techniques taught in the ancient mystery schools. On side 2 is Crystal Cave, Journeys to Places of Healing and Self-Empowerment. Audio tapes are $11 each, which again includes the cost of mailing. So, you have her name and her address and her phone number and all that on the materials that I handed out yesterday. So by all means, feel free to contact the lady. She's very interesting. And John, thank you very much for bringing this book in.
One of the things that really impressed me about the book is that she talks quite a bit about the fact that we have all this Reiki around and all the Reiki initiations around, but we don't have a whole lot of people that are really changing their state of well-being drastically from being worked on by Reiki. And she basically says that getting these Sai Baba symbols increases the power significantly.
I didn't find for myself that it necessarily increased the power significantly, but I did enjoy the difference in vibration. One of the ways that, and this is interesting because, when you talk about an initiatory kind of thing, and people have, these mind-blowing, visionary experiences, and some people just sit there and think about how their butts hurt and, how long it's taking and stuff like that. You have this dichotomy, right? Well, my interpretation of this, in terms of for myself, when it comes to being initiated into different energies and whatnot, the things that I noticed are, in order for you to experience an energy strongly, it really has to have been a part of you. one of the things that I've noticed is when I first began in this with Reiki 1 and 2, I mean, the initiation was, it was okay, and I started to feel a little bit in my hands, and as I practiced more and more and more, I became more and more and more sensitive to that. And then you go through different levels, and you go through other initiations and other energies, and my initiations have been fairly standard like that. I mean, every now and then, especially when I repeat an initiation, then I get powerful visionary and cool stuff like that, just because it's very familiar and I'm very open to it already. However, when I took master level stuff, I had the same experience that by far most people have, and that is the attunement was very grounding. I mean, after second degree and all of those attunements, you expect the energy to be, like wings are going to fly out of your back or something, you're going to soar around Jupiter or something like that. And in most cases, it's quite the opposite. And I was one of the cases where it was quite the opposite. And I went home that evening because a friend of mine was very, very ill. So I drove home from the workshop, which was in another city, to work on her, to continue working on her while I was gone, because I didn't want to cancel the class, and I still wanted to work on her, so I just kind of went without sleep. And immediately I noticed a difference in a much higher level of energy, and a different vibration in my hands. And I wasn't that sensitive to that different vibration in the hands yet. And now that vibration is, completely second nature, And I went through the exact same thing with Kathleen Connor's initiation, with all the other initiations I've taken. But where introduced to a new vibration, you're a little sensitive to it at first until it really begins to grow with you. So I think that's one interesting thing to keep in mind as you're going to do this. People are always after these mystical sit on a mountaintop, unity with all type experiences. The energy thing's a little different. Okay. What else do we want to talk about? Yesterday I tried to give you a good overview of all of the major schools of thought that are out there, and the contributions that they made. We talked a lot about Kathleen Milner, and how I enjoyed my time with her, and we went through the symbols, the 3 additional Sai Baba symbols that she was given. So, there's misinformation out there, and people thinking about, more Sai Baba symbols, pages and pages of Sai Baba symbols. Well, you can kind of see where that came from, because you have pages and pages of symbols from Kathleen Milner, but in there she does clearly identify which symbols come from Sai Baba and which symbols come from somebody in Milwaukee or somebody in England or somebody in New York. So, try not to get those too muddy as you're out there teaching. And likewise, I think it's important to abstain from putting a lot on hanging a lot of things onto, vague frameworks like that, just because they're kind of a vague framework. Each symbol doesn't have a lot said about it. It's intended to be experienced, One of the things that we'll notice after lunch sometime, we'll watch Kathleen's video, probably after all of the attunements and stuff. And in Kathleen's video, she's very experiential, and you'll be able to see that. She'll take you through how she teaches a 3rd degree class, and I think maybe even how she teaches 1st and 2nd degree a little bit. And it's very interesting. And you can tell that she's much more experiential grounded than information based, which I think is a very admirable thing. But consequently, this has been a very information-based class. I mean, we haven't sat in meditation well. We haven't really done much in the way of practices and things like that yet. So this is very different from that. If I were to, if you're an information-based person and planning on giving a soul Sai Baba workshop, like on Sai Baba 1 or Sai Baba 2 or Sai Baba 3, there isn't really enough information in those pages to fill the time of a workshop, right? So what's your tendency to do? Most people, their tendency, rather than going experiential, is to heap a lot of extra stuff on it, which is sort of what's happening. So I'm going to encourage you here to try to abstain from that, as I've tried to abstain from that.
Would you recommend doing Sai Baba and, I'll call it traditional Reiki initiations during the same workshop?
Yeah.
Do you think that
Yeah.
across the board?
I look at my goal as, or not my goal necessarily, but my role, my rhyme, as being, as being, really the person that's there to open the student, client, other person, whatever, up to as much energy as is possible. And a part of that is, of course, throwing everything that I have available for me at them for them to use, helping them leave with the most tools possible. To teach everything that I know, to not hold back, and each class is completely different, and other classes have, different blocks of information than you guys have probably just because of questions that are asked. We haven't talked a lot about entities because you guys haven't brought it up. We haven't talked a lot about other additional things that that are out there that are some real concerns in some little corners of it. So all of that is what we're doing. So yeah, I teach it all at one time because you really can. It really doesn't take that much away. You still have plenty of time to do it. Okay. What else? Sai Baba. What else to talk about? Arthur Robertson in Florida. We covered him a little bit. We spoke about how a lot of the variations come out of Arthur Robertson. A lot of the variations in technique. I think whether they're Jo Wei or in the water ceremony things that you see tacked on to a lot of attunements as you traverse around, or as I traverse around. And I brought examples of non-copyrighted Reiki master materials up here for you to look at so that you can see where those have worked in and how things have changed and evolved, all of that. Also, we discussed his Antakarana stuff, which is something that you're going to run out there a lot, mostly because William Rand has been spreading that Antakarana packet handout for quite a while now. And that's a nice symbol, and people really like that, and they like to hang it in their healing space, and they like to work with it a lot. So consequently, questions will arise about that. So I wanted to give you a little bit of a background about where that really came from, and does the color, add and make a difference? I mean, of course the color adds and makes a difference, just in the additional vibrations that it adds. But I think that you also have to keep in mind that the template is the symbol itself. What you add to it in the way of colors is just what you add to it in the way of additional vibrations. You still, as long as you have the template of the primary symbol, that's pretty good. Some people have had some interesting experiences with this. Karen is one person here, and I've heard this also from many other people, with setting water on the top of the Xerox down to Corona stuff, and how it goes from tasting normal, tasting good, to tasting really bad, like a stale shoe, old shoe type thing. And I've heard a similar thing. Kathleen said kind of a similar thing about how she felt about the Antakarana in general, that it was good in sort of short doses, but if it was left in a space that it had that kind of old shoe thing to it. So, this is something that you're going to have to play with. This is something that's experiential for you. I haven't necessarily found that. But then again, I'm always gone, so I don't have like a single space to hang one in for a terribly long time, What else should we talk about in relationship to? Yes?
One more question.
Sure.
It's probably totally off the subject that you're covering, but there's been debate and discussion about the quality of Reiki transmitted based on how much you pay for it, which we've sort of covered, but you haven't really talked about it. Now, some people say, if you gave a love offering for your class, then it's not as good as if you paid $500, and if you paid $1,000, it's better.
It's really good.
Yes.
And it gets even better.
You're asking me.
I've actually seen people say that, and everything from a love offering to, how do you feel about that? How do you feel about the love offering concept in this work?
Well, I guess if anyone here is worried about that, you can feel free to write an additional check for whatever to up the level of Reiki or anything. I think that's fine. I've attuned a lot of people for exchanges.
I think that's a great thing to do. I think that whatever they value it at and wherever they're at with it is what you should honor.
Well, value is so subjective too.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's personal.
For one person, somebody will spend, the cost of this class and a bottle of wine tonight over dinner. Whereas other people will save up for quite a while to be able to come here. So, value is completely subjective. I don't think that you can hang quality on value decisions like that by any stretch of the imagination. And I actually started doing this because really because most of my friends couldn't afford it.